Hallelujah, hallelujah, hey, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Gone to see some.
Hey, really good to see all you. My name is Doug Padgett. This is the Vote Common Good Tour. And in 2018, this little band of Vote Common Do-Gooders and some other people in this room were struck with an idea. We were struck with the idea that there are faith voters in this country who feel left out of the experience of voting and making the kinds of change they want to see in America. For a lot of us, we were shocked and we were our hearts sunk by the election of Donald Trump. I'll just be flat out true about it. This whole tour, this whole event exists because we were shocked by the fact that people of faith said, we want that person to be the president of the United States. And a lot of us said, we've got to do something about it. So we said, well, we've woken up and we now need to speak up and we need to stand up. So in 2018, we toured 31 congressional districts in 31 cities across the country in 15 states. And we asked people one simple thing. Would you, as a faith voter, consider voting for someone who's not a Republican if you have habitually voted for Republicans in the past? At least this one time. We said, we're not trying to tell you not to be a Republican. We just don't want you to vote for this one this time. And we said, would you possibly consider voting for a Democrat for the first time or at least this time in this election because we think something's at stake in this country. So we got on a bus and we traveled around the country and we said, would you join us in waking up, speaking up, and standing up for this cause? And we loved it so much. I'll just be frank with you. We loved it so much that all we could talk about was in 2020, we're not going to go to 15 states. We're going to go to 50 states. And we're not going to do this for 5 weeks. We're going to do this for 40 weeks. And we're going to make sure that everybody everywhere is invited into this project. Now, look, we're not here to tell somebody that you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump if they want to vote for him. If Donald Trump doesn't make you not want to vote for Donald Trump, there's nothing we can do that's going to make you not want to vote for Donald Trump. He's the best thing we got going for this cause. What we're here to ask people to do is to deepen into their faith and deepen into faith, hope, and love. And part of the reason that we've selected faith, hope, and love as our theme is that we know that what drove us around the country last year was faith, hope, love, and diesel. We'll get to that in a little bit when we do the fundraiser. Takes a lot to get a tour bus all the way around the country for 40 weeks. But it was really faith, hope, and love that gets you moving because you can get awfully downhearted. It's really easy to turn mean, it's really easy to turn sad, and it's really easy to just sit it all out. But as my friend Tessa's mom told her, she said, honey, when you live in a time of significant social turmoil, you don't do nothing. You do something. And so we're doing something, and we decided that if we were going to start this tour, our 50-state Faith, Hope, and Love for a Change on Election Day tour, the place we wanted to start that was in Des Moines, Iowa, and then coming back to Iowa in February for the caucuses, because this is, as you all know, this is the place where the first tallying up of people of who they want to engage as the presidential candidate in the country happens here in Iowa on the caucus weekend of February 3rd. So that's why we started here in Iowa. It's also the center of the country, which has a nice little vibe to it. And then we're going to be traveling all over the country. But I'm going to say this a number of times over the course of the days. We're going to be back here in Iowa on the weekend of February 1, 2, and 3. And if you want to bring the Vote Common Good experience to your town or to your community or to your church, we're here to recruit you. So feel that you're recruited, and we want you to invite us, and we want to join you as we come back over the course of the weekend. But that's all getting ahead of ourselves. Sure, we are going to spend 40 weeks traveling the country, going to all these cities, but right now we're going to spend our time in this city doing these things, in this time with all of you. And I just want to thank you so much for you being here. It really does mean the world to us. I got to tell you, most people that we invited to come to this couldn't make it or said no. Now, this room is going to fill up over the course of today. We know how many people are registered and coming, and it's more that'll fit in this room, but not everybody will come at one time. But over the course of the day, this room is going to fill up, and tonight this room is going to overflow with people. So we're going to ask you all to be the early on ambassadors. Look, you're people that came to our first event of 2020, so you're already trailblazers, and you showed up on time or early. So look around. You're the people that say yes, and you say yes early, and you show up early, and you're the best kind of people you can have in a project like this. So would you give each other a round of applause? Look around. Look around at these faith open lovers. So we're super glad that you're here. We're gonna commission you now to be ambassadors of this event. As this fills up, as people from the press come, as candidates come in, they don't know what they're walking into. Everybody registered doesn't know what they're walking into. You know why they don't know? Because we just made this all up. There's nothing to know. That song, they're not kidding. We sat in those two chairs last night, and we were talking about what we're doing. We're saying, we're going everywhere in the country, and everybody's got a road to travel, and everybody's got a sidewalk to walk on and stand on. Everyone's got a place to be in this country. We want to make sure that our storyline is that everyone's included, and we want to pull everyone into making the common good their voting criteria. Not their political party, not even a political agenda, to start with the idea that the common good drives you. And as a Christian, I'm a Christian pastor, that seems to me to be the call that we have to put forth. And I believe as a Christian that my call is not to vote for my own self-interest. I should do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, the book of Philippians instructs someone like me. But I should consider others before myself, even in my voting. In other words, what is the common good, not just what's in it for me. Well, not everybody's telling that story, even though it resounds in our hearts. So we need to be the ones who are going to voice that to other people. So over the course of this day, you're going to experience 5 sessions over the course of the next 3 days that are very similar to what we'll do on the tour. They're going to follow a faith, which is our wake-up call. They're going to follow a hope, which is our speak-up call. And they're going to follow a love, which is our stand-up call. So the sessions are going to be organized: faith, hope, and love, wake up, speak up, stand up. That's how those sessions are going to go. But then you're going to be in workshops. You're going to be hearing from other people in this room and others who are going to be joining us over the course of these days. That's meant for you to engage as much as you want to. If there's something missing that you want to offer in this days that we have together, you can come and see me. You can come see Mary Beth, or Frankie, you can see anybody with one of those orange lanyards on, because they all have something to do with this, and we can make it happen. So we're hoping that you will make this weekend yours, and I want to commission you all to be the ambassadors, to welcome other people, to help them find this room, to help them find the workshop rooms, to help them find the hospitality room next door, making sure that they know that they're welcomed and that they're included, and for you to start telling this story in the way that makes the most sense to you. Are you willing to do that? All right, we'd love. Do you have another song in your pocket right now? I know it's not on the schedule, but I kind of feel like we need a little more music in the air. Are you up for that? Is everybody up for that? All right, and after that, you're going to hear from Michael Waters. Michael Waters is part of our team. Michael Waters is from Dallas, Texas. And if any of the rest of you had to fly in today, that wind, which felt so good on the ground, did not feel so good up in the air, did it, Michael Waters? All right, so after this song, if Michael's got his bearings back to him, you're going to hear from Michael Waters. And this is Reverend Vince Anderson. And Reverend Vince Anderson leads the Love Choir in Brooklyn, New York on Monday nights. And this is Miss Mia Pace, who is not only a part of the band Chick, 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 but she's also part of the Women's Revival Chorus, and they're going to be our musical hosts not only this weekend, but over the course of this tour. So here we go.
It truly is an honor to be with you this day. Back in September, the first week of September, in fact, of 2019, I had the honor of journeying to El Paso, Texas, with Vote Common Good. El Paso for me is a place of many happy memories. My grandmother and grandfather's home remains there. When I think of El Paso, I think of hot gingerbread being brought out of the oven, playing in the backyard with my cousins and uncles. But unfortunately, when we went to El Paso this past September, it's because a young man resides very near where I live now in Dallas, Texas, drove 650 miles, 10 hours, exited off of I-10, drove into a Walmart parking lot, retrieved his AK-47, and entered into that Walmart where families were gathered shopping for back to school. and unleashed hell. 46 people were shot. 22 people were killed. Friends, unfortunately, that was not the first time last year that I had to bear witness to a sight brimming with such pain. In January of last year, I began speaking and lecturing in Los Angeles, where in 1965, an act of police brutality sent the city of Watts ablaze. That same season, at that same time, Dr. King said that rioting was the voice of the unheard. In February of last year, I led another group on the civil rights pilgrimage throughout the Deep South, and I found myself standing on the banks of the river where a young 14-year-old's body was retrieved by the name of Emmett Till. Across the street from that river, old plantation grounds. Today, they've had to make the sign that serves as a memorial to Emmett Till bulletproof, because people find it within their heart to continue to kill the young boy's name all over again. Went to Jackson, where under the carport today you can literally still see tainted stains from the pools of Medgar Evers' blood. He died seeking to give our people the right to vote in the state of Mississippi. Went to Birmingham, where 4 young girls were bombed into eternity. In April, I found myself in that city of Charlottesville. Primarily young white men carrying torches marched throughout those streets proclaiming, "You shall not replace us." I paid my respects in a narrow thoroughfare where a young woman by the name of Heather Heyer became the Viola Luiso of her generation. Later in April, I found myself on the banks of the Atlantic Ocean, in Virginia Beach, where 400 years prior, those first Africans, my forebears, were brought to this nation. And I'm mindful of the fact that their lives did not matter, to the extent that many of them were tossed overboard before the ship pulled to land, because you could not collect money for a sick body, but you could collect money for a dead body. Back in June, I found myself on the island of Manhattan. A dear friend of mine, Sharon Richard, published her first book and gave me the honor of writing the foreword. It's entitled, "For Such a Time as This, Hope and Forgiveness After the Charleston Massacre." Her mother, Ethel Lance, was shot 8 times point-blank range. And Mother Emanuel AME Church. I visited that church about a month after that attack to bear witness to bullet holes in the ceiling, in the walls, and in the floor. Recognize that those were merely the bullets that missed or went through bodies. So here we were, gathered together in El Paso, Texas. Then, one of the latest sites of this unfolding violence and racial terror that we've known well within this nation, drawn there because a young white 21-year-old domestic terrorist thought it was his responsibility to stop the so-called Hispanic invasion of America. Words he heard uttered by the President of the United States of Texas. United States of America. That same man who thought it not robbery to proclaim that there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville. So there we were, in the midst of that memorial, remembering the dead. Among those dead included Jordan and Andre Achino, who had gone to that Walmart after having dropped off their 6-year-old daughter at cheerleading practice and took to that Walmart their 1-year-old son. And we're told that when their bodies were recovered, Andre's body was covering Jordan. Jordan's body was covering their child. The child's body was soaking up the blood. The child's fingers snapped in two. We also know that among the persons that were gotten rid of on that day, was a 63-year-old woman by the name of Margie Rickard. She's gone to that Walmart simply to do some grocery shopping. And her husband, Antonio Basco, spent 5 hours driving all across the region trying to find word concerning his wife. And at his last stop, found out she was dead. Some of you here, you may remember Antonio's story. He was a man who was so concerned that he had no family, no friends there in El Paso, that no one would show up and join him in remembering his wife. Word began to spread of his angst all across the media, all across social media. And on the day of her funeral, wouldn't you know that when he showed up, he found a sanctuary with seats for 500 filled with over 700 people. Before he could enter into that sanctuary, he passed 1,500 others who could not get in, but who stood out in the hot sun to declare that Margie's life mattered. The very sign of divine providence, while we were there in El Paso and while we were there at the memorial, I saw an elderly man tending to one of the crosses. When I came around, I recognized that it was Antonio. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because at the time I was wearing a clergy collar, but I went and said, I don't want to bother you, but I want to acknowledge you. I want you to know that I see you and that we are here. And Antonio jumped to his feet and buried his head in my chest. And fighting tears, declared over and over again, I don't know what to do. I feel so alone. And I imagine that if you're here in this room today under this presidential administration, there have been days where you declared, I don't know what to do. All of the fear and hatred and violence, applauded and celebrated by the so-called most powerful person in the world. Friends, they don't teach you what to do in these moments in seminary. That there's no amount of pastoral experience that fully situates your soul for a moment like this. But I attempted to pray. My prayers were mumbled. There was not a clear flow. I was struggling and grasping for words, but among the words I found was, God, be present with Antonio. God, give him peace. God, let him know that he's not alone. In the midst of that prayer, then I began to hear a still small voice, returning my words projected back upon myself. No, Michael, you show up. No, Michael, you be present. No, Michael, you stand up. No, Michael, you let him know that he's not alone. And friends, what I do know, arcing throughout this horrific history, is that every scene of violence, every scene of tragedy, there have been people who have shown up. They've shown up to drive people all across Montgomery so that they would not have to ride in indignity upon Montgomery buses. They showed up in the South, registering others to vote. They showed up in march. They've showed up in rally. They've showed up even in the midst of difficulty and pain. And I declare that if we're going to redeem this nation, I declare that if we're going to save this nation for our children, I declare that if we're going to open up cages and set children free on the border, we're going to have to show up. And I have one question for you: who's willing in this room to show up? Show up not just today, show up tomorrow, show up forever, show up for justice, show up for peace, show up for love. If you're willing to show up, stand up on your feet. If you're willing to show up, stand up on your feet. If you're willing to show up, stand up on your feet. And let's continue to show up and stand up until justice flows like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.